Even me, disbelief hung faintly in the air. There was no way the supreme being Aints Ul Gaun could fail. In fact, he never had. In short, such a claim was only to comfort Cocytus. All that matters is what you gained from the experience. Cocytus, let me rephrase the question. How could you have won? Cocytus fell into silent thought. He knew now what he could have done to win. He voiced one of his faults. I underestimated the Lizardmen. I should have proceeded more cautiously. You are correct. No matter how weak an opponent may seem, you should never make light of them. I should have had Narbril watch this fight. What else? I think perhaps we lacked information. We didn't know their strengths or the lay of the land within their territory. I learned that when things like that are unclear, the chances of winning will inevitably be low. What else? We also didn't have enough commanders. We were using low-tier undead, so we should have attached a commander who could give them orders according to the situation. Also, considering the Lizardmen's weapons, we should have mainly used zombies to tire them out, or we should have used all our troops together instead of separately. And besides that, my apologies, that's all I can come up with at the moment. No, that makes sense. Well done. Of course, I can think of some other things, but you have learned well enough, Cocytus. Really, I wanted you to discover these things on your own without being asked, but I suppose this is acceptable. Now then, why didn't you choose these courses of action from the start? I hadn't thought of them. I believed we could simply keep pushing. I see. So when the undead all died, you realized some things? Good. If you strive to not fail again, then this will have been a meaningful defeat. Cocytus had the feeling his master smiled a bit. There are many types of failures, but yours is not a critical one. Besides the Elder Lick, all those undead were auto-spawning monsters. Losing them doesn't affect Nazarick at all, and the fact that the Guardians have learned not to repeat these mistakes is a bonus. Thank you, Lord Aints. That said, it is true that you were defeated, so I will have you accept punishment like Sholtia. There his words cut off, and Cocytus waited to see what his punishment would be. The brief silence made him a little anxious, but a weight had been lifted from Cocytus. He knew in his heart that his master hadn't lost hope in him. However, the next thing his master said made Cocytus stiffen. Honestly, I thought I'd take you off this operation, but this is a better idea. Cocytus, wipe away the filth of this defeat with your own hands. Exterminate the Lizardmen this time, without anyone else's help. If they killed all the Lizardmen so that no word of the battle got out, it would be as if Nazarick had never been defeated. Someone who scorned those who lived outside Nazarick as lower life forms would be delighted to set about perpetrating this atrocity. Up until now, Cocytus would have taken the order without hesitation. But Cocytus trembled. He knew what it meant to do what he was about to do. He breathed in and out a few times. As everyone wondered why he hadn't accepted the order, he spoke. Lord Ainz, there is something I would like to ask of you. The world stopped. He felt the attention of a few stabbing into him. Cocytus, a guardian at the peak of power and strength within Nazarick, was assaulted by chills so violent he shivered. He could count on one hand those as strong or stronger than him. Regret crashed down upon him like an avalanche, but it was too late. Now that he said something, he couldn't take it back. Cocytus had multiple compound eyes, giving him an extremely wide field of vision. His saving grace was that he was facing the ground, so he couldn't see his master's face. If his master had looked enraged or displeased, Cocytus wouldn't have been able to do anything. I beg you, Lord Ain't, someone else interrupted, not their master. You fool. Albedo rebuked him with an ear-splitting scream, a voice appropriate for the captain of the Floor Guardians. Cocytus was petrified, trembling like a child scolded by his mother. You dare petition Lord Aints, despite being the one who brought defeat to Nazarick. Know your place. Cocytus didn't speak but kept his head bowed, hoping for consent from their master, even as Albedo battered him harder with her rage. Back down, but Albedo's shout vanished partway, giving way to the quiet voice of one man. That's enough, Albedo, she gasped, and their master repeated the words again to soothe her. Raise your head, Cocytus. Why don't you let me hear what it is you want to ask? It was a quiet voice containing no apparent anger. That was precisely why it was terrifying. The fear resembled the feeling of being swallowed up while peering into an impossibly clear lake. Cocytus had gear to protect him from the psychic effects of fear from external sources. The emotions assaulting him now came from inside. Swallowing hard, not spit, but venom to be exact. Cocytus raised his head and looked his master in the face. The flames in his vacant orbits were a slightly vivid red. Once again. Will you let me hear what it is you want to ask? Cocytus's voice wouldn't come out. He tried over and over, but his throat was tight. He couldn't utter a single word. What's wrong, Cocytus? A heavy silence weighed him down. I'm not mad or anything, you know. I just want to know what you're thinking, what you want to say. His tone held the kindness one used when asking a clammed-up child. Responding to that push, Cocytus said, I am against killing all the Lizardmen. I beg you, please have mercy. When he finished speaking, he felt the air in the room shift. It had shifted. The biggest reaction was from straight ahead Albedo's murderous glare. The other guardians were shaken, although Demiurge and their master were tranquil. He sensed nothing from them. Cocytus, do you know what you're saying? Albedo's icy voice, transformed by killing intent, was enough to make even chill-resistant Cocytus shiver. Lord Aints ordered you to exterminate the Lizardmen as punishment. That you would raise an objection to it, guardian of the 5th level, Cocytus. Could it be that you were frightened of the Lizardmen? Her voice was mocking, but Cocytus had no response. Albedo's attitude was correct. If their positions had been reversed, Cocytus would probably have been similarly irritated. How about you say something? What cut off her words wasn't a voice, but a sound, the sharp strike of a staff on the floor. Quiet, Albedo, I am asking Cocytus. Don't interfere. Excuse me, my lord, please forgive me. Albedo bowed and returned to her previous position. Their master's gaze returned to Cocytus, serious and practically boring a hole through him. It was impossible to read his master's emotions. He could have been completely furious or just curious. Now then, Cocytus, you must have a reason for saying what you just said. Some kind of benefit to the great tomb of Nazareth. Tell me, my lord, there is potential that in the future these Lizardmen will produce robust warriors. I think that perhaps killing them all now would be a waste. When powerful Lizardmen are born, it would be a benefit to instill in them a loyalty toward Nazareth and make them our followers. Your proposal does make sense. In the end, undead from Lizardman corpses weren't any stronger than the ones made using human corpses. If we can make arrangements to collect corpses buried in Rantle's graveyard, there's no reason to insist on using Lizardmen. Cocytus was about to say then, but he realized their master wasn't finished speaking. He had a bad feeling, and then his fear was confirmed. However, it's more cost-effective to use the undead I create with corpses than live Lizardmen. Loyalty requires trust. Undead don't rack up food and drink costs. The only advantage I can think of for using Lizardmen is that their numbers will increase. And even then, we have to think about the long-term implications. Let me know if you think I am missing something. Anything you think would make sense to me. Their merciful master would grant his wish as long as he was convinced, but Cocytus couldn't come up with anything. He'd always seen himself as a weapon for his master to wield. Because of that, because he'd never thought for himself, he couldn't explain his own thoughts well. He hadn't considered how they, as an organization, could benefit. And what he was being asked really boiled down to one thing: what was in it for the great tomb of Nazareth? The reason Cocytus didn't want to kill the Lizardmen was because one had attracted his interest. As a warrior, he was drawn to the group that Lizardman was trying to protect. It was a personal emotion, definitely not a utilitarian motive based on seeing the bigger picture. Cocytus panicked. If their master, quietly watching him, became impatient or bothered, this miraculous question would lose all meaning. All that would be left was the standing order to exterminate the Lizardmen. He desperately racked his brain. Still, he had no answer. What's the matter, Cocytus? You don't have anything? If not, you should be fine with exterminating them, yes. The question was repeated. Nothing came to mind. Cocytus had nothing to say, and his mind was just spinning its wheels. A murmur echoed loudly in the silent throne room. I see, that's too bad. Just as the weight of the words too bad threatened to crush Cocytus, a quiet voice handed him a lifeline. Lord Aints, please forgive the intrusion. What is it, Demiurge? You have something to say? Yes. Regarding your earlier decision, I wonder if you would consider a humble plan of mine. Let us hear it. My lord, Lord Aints, you are well aware of our need to conduct experiments. What if we experimented on the Lizardmen? Oh ho, that's an interesting idea. Their master leaned forward from the throne. For just a split second, Cocytus felt his crimson eyes on him. Indeed, we don't know what Nazaric's future will be. There may come a time when we need to combine and lead forces. We may need to conquer a country someday. At that point in time, whether we've performed experiments in governance or not may have a huge impact on how successful we are. Demiurge further straightened his posture. He gave his conclusion, looking squarely at their master on the throne. I humbly suggest that we conquer the Lizardmen villages and experiment with governing in a way that does not employ fear. The staff struck the floor, and the sharp clack echoed throughout the room. A magnificent proposal, Demiurge. Thank you. Very well, I will take Demiurge's advice and change the Lizardmen group's fate from extermination to occupation. Does anyone object? Raise your hand and speak. He cast his flickering crimson gaze across the Guardians. It seems there are no objections. Then it's decided. Everyone bowed in acknowledgement. But Demiurge, what a great idea. I am impressed. Demiurge smiled. What are you saying, Lord Aints? Surely you had already come up with it. You were waiting for Cocytus, where you? He replied with an awkward smile rather than words. That said it all. Cocytus felt all his strength leave his body. He had commanded Nazaric's glorious army, lost, and then objected to his master's opinion without a counter-proposal. What did that make him? It made him incompetent. He was utterly incompetent. No, that's not true, Demiurge. You're thinking too highly of me. What I wanted was an original idea, no matter what it was. His eyes moved again and stopped the longest on Cocytus. Realizing what it meant, he felt deeply ashamed, but he couldn't look down. You need to prioritize intention. Listen, Guardians, this won't work if you just blindly follow orders. You need to think a little first. Think about what will benefit Nazaric the most. If you believe an order is mistaken or that there is a more efficient way to do things, then present that to me or whoever made the proposal. Now then, Cocytus, let us return to our previous topic. I said I would punish you, right? Yes. You said to kill all the Lizardmen. I did, but now instead of killing them, we're going to govern them. Therefore, your punishment has also changed. Govern the Lizardmen and instill in them a loyalty toward Nazaric. Rule by fear is strictly prohibited. We want this to be a case study. This was a huge role that Cocytus probably none of the Guardians besides Demiurge had ever filled before. For just a split second, the words "it's too hard for me" appeared in Cocytus's mind. But there was no way he could say something so pathetic neither to their generous absolute ruler, to whom he owed his loyalty, nor to his comrade, who had rescued him from a difficult situation. Understood. I am nervous about many things, so I ask for your support. Of course, materials, food, personnel. I am sure you'll need many things. Nazaric will provide them. Thank you. I promise to perform in a way that lives up to the mercy you have shown me. Cocytus shouted from the bottom of his heart. Good. Then I order all Guardians to arrange a sortie. We need a feint, and to show them that what they've seen so far is not the true power of Nazaric. Of course, if it will cause obstacles in governing the Lizardmen after the fact, we don't have to do it, Cocytus. Cocytus thought it over before replying. I don't believe there will be any issues. I see. Guardians, prepare for departure. All the Guardians present called out their acknowledgement in unison. Albedo, I am going as well. Prepare the soldiers. Understood. Should I assume there are those who enjoy spying among our enemy and choose personnel who will cause a misunderstanding? Exactly. But don't forget, we also have to awe them into submission. Then perhaps an army with Nazaric old guarders as the linchpin would be attractive. Cocytus agreed silently with her reply. There was a type of undead guard called an old guarder. Nazaric old guarders were an elite undead found only in Nazaric. They were brilliant and proficient in a number of combat skills. They had weapons enchanted with all sorts of effects, as well as magic armor and shields. That's fine. How many do you need? 3,000. That's not very many. It might not overwhelm them enough. These guys beat us and probably underestimate us. Now we have to terrify them. It's no fun if we send fewer than last time. I want double that. Anything else you need? Then how about also mobilizing the Nazaric Elder Guarders and Nazaric Master Guarders? Then we'll have 6,000. In response to Albedo's smooth answer, befitting her position as captain, Aints was clear and concise. Great. And is there any issue with activating Gargantua? No, Lord Aints. He is fully mobile. Then Shaltia, use gate to transport our troops all at once. I may not have enough magical energy on my own. Get support from Pestonia, have her transfer some energy. If that's still not enough, get some from Lupus Regina. Understood. Next, have Negrido S and Pandora S, Actor S security net focused on us. That will loosen up the coverage on Seba's S crew, but we'll just have to up the physical surveillance. Good. Move out everybody. Tomorrow we'll show the Lizardmen the power of the great tomb of Nazarick. Thanks, Demiurge. The first thing Cocytus did after their master had left the throne room was bow low and thank his comrade. Demiurge flashed his usual smile. That's not necessary, I insist. We would have had to kill all the Lizardmen if it for you. I said you don't have to worry about it, Cocytus. I think this is what Lord Aints wanted from the start. Someone answered her, to Demiurge and his single raised finger. Cocytus had the feeling it could have been him or one of the other guardians. In other words, I think he made you general in the attack on the Lizardman village because he anticipated the remarks you made earlier. He appeared extremely happy when you said you were against destroying the villages, and he seemed disappointed when you couldn't make a counter-proposal. You mean he was disappointed because things didn't go according to plan? That's right, Sholtia. In other words, there was a very high probability that everything said here was according to his plan. He was able to foresee everything. I'd expect nothing less from Lord Aints. But spit it out. Aura sharply urged her fidgeting little brother. I was wondering why we used such weak undead. Just maybe, but maybe he assumed we would lose. Or rather than losing, perhaps he thought Cocytus would investigate how strong they were and advise on whether or not we could win. Cocytus remembered his talk with Demiurge, and the same shame welled up inside him. So he'd been doing it all wrong. That plan would be impossible to make without knowing Cocytus' personality inside out. Magnificent, Lord Aints. I learned during the duel with Sholtia that Lord Aints' skill as a fighter is exceptional, but he is also a brilliant strategist. I really admire him. He says all those nice things, but we raid just his pawns. Demiurge gave his remarks as the most brilliant mind among the Nazarick Guardians. He is simply too amazing. Perhaps he just arrived to lead the Supreme Beings on a whim. Sholtia shivered with joy as she spoke of their master. The other Guardians nodded in agreement. Aints returned to his room and dove into bed. After being airborne for an unusually long time, his body clumsily sank into the mattress. Then he rolled around for a bit. To the right, to the left. It was something he could do only because the bed was so gigantic. Aints rolled back and forth, giggling a little, paying not the slightest attention to the fact that his luxurious robe was getting all wrinkled. Of course, he was acting like a little kid only because no one else was in the room. Eventually, after returning sufficiently to childlike innocence and enjoying the softness of the bed to the fullest degree, he lay there and stared at the ceiling. Man, I am beat. I want to throw back some drinks and get totally wasted, but I can't do either, he grumbled and heaved a sigh, albeit an imitation sigh, since he didn't actually breathe. Because he was undead, neither physical nor mental exhaustion affected him, but every day of the past month or so had taken a toll on his human mental state. If he weren't undead, he would had stomach trouble for sure. There was a lot of pressure on Aints in his position. Momon the warrior defeated a silver-haired vampire Sholtia. For someone who knew nothing, it was simply an amazing feat. But for the ones who had used the world item on Sholtia, it held a different meaning. There was a high probability they would come after him or try to contact him. For that reason, Aints was always on alert. He carried cash store items so he could make a quick getaway at any time. In his free time, still on guard, he role-played or image-trained in his head how to figure out how to run away while gathering intelligence. He did this in the event they tried to make contact. Those tense days had no effect on Aints' gown, but the vestiges of the human Satoru Suzuki were a wreck. The moment he was alone in a free and open space, away from the pressure of having to act like the ruler of Nazarick, he had probably regressed to a childlike state. This wasn't out of Aints' wishes, but because Satoru Suzuki had been stretched thin and wanted to act out. I don't think I've ever worked this long without a day off. I wonder how much overtime I get this month. This flavor of mumbled griping was perhaps Satoru Suzuki strongly manifesting. The Great Tomb of Nazarick, no, ain't Ulgaunides not really a corporation. We are a limited partnership and a fair company that guarantees its workers overtime pay. After grumbling a little, he furrowed his non-existent brow. There are managerial bonuses, so I don't get overtime. He began rolling back and forth again. After 5 laps, he stopped quickly. Now then, enough with this nonsense, but wow, I can't believe Cocytus said all that stuff. He hadn't imagined that such a thing was possible. Cocytus wanted to show the Lizardmen mercy. That was a real problem for Aints. Satoru Suzuki's personality was such that he went into presentations with plenty of documents prepared. He wasn't very good at dealing with unexpected questions, but if the answer was written down in his documents, he could just read it. In other words, to Satoru Suzuki, the key to a good presentation was doing enough research that he could answer any question thrown at him. With such an outlook, he wasn't very good at adapting on the fly. No, he'd gone past that.